Hey, good morning, everybody. It's Hammer. Today is Wednesday, November 6, 2024. I, of course, with Originator Success here with the Daily Mortgage Rate Update, the only place on the web where you guys get to join me live each and every weekday morning, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time, broadcasting to you on Facebook and on YouTube. If you're here live, say good morning. If you're watching on the replay, go ahead and give me a hashtag replay in the comments. Let me know that you were here. Don't forget to smash that like button, tag an hello friend, share this post in a group. Today, I'm going to do things a little bit differently. I am going to go ahead and post the live link. If y'all would like to join me, I would love to open this up to live conversation. So I'm going to post a link in the chat. And that should be posting all over the place. Let me know if you guys see that. When I post it in the chat, does it actually post on Facebook? Otherwise, I'm going to go into the actual things here. I'm going to post it. I'm posting it on my personal live. It's there. Let me go to the Originator Success Facebook page. I will post it there as well. Up. It looks like it does. All right, good. It does it. So it looks like it is posted there. I see that link. Awesome. So I am giving y'all an opportunity. And my video is not reversed. I turned off mirroring actually. So anyway, yeah, hop on, man. Hop on, y'all. I would love to have some of you join me today if you are willing, and we're gonna chat this one out. Today's a big day. You guys have probably heard that Trump has resoundingly won, that the Senate is firmly in Republican hands, and most likely the House will be too. The House has not been totally decided, but being that the Republicans did have the majority before this election, and so far they've gained a seat, it's unlikely that we see that they lose ground. So, all right, it looks like I've got some folks on here. Here's Siegel. Let me click the button. Let me put my headphones on. All right. I've got some folks on here. Here's Siegel. I hear me. Let me put my headphones on you. All right. I've got some folks on here. Here's Siegel. I hear me on you. All right. This may be a little chaotic. Where are you? Oh, there's Ron Siegel. Does anyone else hear me talking to me about me?
Yeah, there's a lot of echoing.
Yeah, that's on your side. Does anyone else hear me talking to me about me?
Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah, see, if I mute you, it goes away.
If you go into the echo cancellation option.
There you go. Try that. See if that works. Yeah, see, if I mute you, there you go. It goes away.
You go into the echo cancellation option.
We hear you echoing, canceling, echo. You got it. You need headphones, man.
Yeah, if I was in my studio, I would. I haven't gone in there yet. It's early.
I know. I wonder how we can eliminate that. You need headphones, man.
Yeah, if I was in there yet. It's early.
I know. You're gonna try your earpods. There you go. That's working. All right.
Can you hear me now?
We got you. Yeah, no, I'm not going to close out the live stream, Sean. I got it. All right, so we've got. Let's see who else. Kenny Rivard. It shows you, and I have you turned on. Trying to get you on here. I don't know why we don't have you here. Let me turn it off. Turn it back on again. Mike Morano, you are off and back on. Removed from the stream. No, you're both on the stream. Let's see. Let's do thumbnails. I don't know why it doesn't add you guys to the stream. Hold on a minute. Let me see. Invite guests. I've already got that one on there. Invite up to 10 guests, it says. Huh. What do y'all see on your side for Mike Morano and Kenny Rivard? Do you guys see anything when I've clicked to let you in? Because so far I got Ron. I'm going to keep going because we don't want to be totally boring. But you guys see if you get in there and what that looks like. So anyway, man, mortgage-backed securities are down 75 basis points to start the day. Rate sheets are going to be worse. 75 basis points sounds devastating, but it's actually up until 10 minutes ago, we were actually only as bad as we were at last Thursday or Friday for mortgage bonds. So what do you think, Ron, as far as where rates will go today and over the next couple of days with the Fed meeting tomorrow? What's on your mind on that?
I'm going to still say the same thing that I always say, that bonds always overreact. So we're gonna come back to. I mean, I'm glad that I locked everything yesterday. Today, I wouldn't lock anything right now because of this overreaction. And the only thing I'd probably do is buy airplane stocks, because there's a lot of people that are probably leaving the country.
Yeah, they all say that, and then they don't. And I've actually got it on the bottom here. I'm going to run my warning. It says, "Warning: political talk. Do not be triggered." There you go. So, we are sitting here having conversations about how all this is going to affect mortgage rates and what this looks like. This is not a political talk show, but of course, today politics going to be front and center on driving mortgage rates. Now, I had said, depending on the presidency, we would see a move, but the big moves would only come if we saw a wave. And that's what we're getting right now. And again, just to be clear for those that are that haven't necessarily seen it all, Trump resoundingly is winning the presidency. There's a few states that have not finished their tally yet. He leads in those states. If he wins those, it'll put him up over 300 for electoral votes. But it's the Senate is now 52 Republicans, and the House currently, I think it was 190. The AP had it at 198 to 178. So it's a little bit higher than what they're showing here on Bloomberg. But not all the votes are in for the House yet. But it is expected that the House will win on that. So of course, all the talk, Ron, was if we saw Trump win, tariffs are going to lead to inflation. The tax cuts are going to lead to more debt. What was your take on some of that?
I think it's just a biased media. So my whole thinking is that we know exactly what we're going to get. There's not a question. I mean, with Harris, we didn't know what we would get because she wouldn't tell anybody, and quite honestly, she didn't have to go through the process of being vetted. Trump, we had 4 years to see exactly what was going to happen. The decrease in oil prices and gas prices is going to offset any tariffs that come into play. And the only tariffs that we're going to really see are the minimal ones, the ones that he's been talking about, 100% and 200%. Those are just bargaining chips. So he's not going to really do that. And like I say, the offset will be that the oil prices will come down, which is basically a tax break for everybody. Yeah, now, I will say I got two things I gotta pull a hammer here. One of them is that I would bet that I'm going to be wrong, that we're going to only see a 25 basis point cut. We're not going to see the 50 that I've been predicting. So,
okay. So we jump
in
over
advance.
to the Fed.
I'll say that I think, and Tim Rose came out and said that Sunday also. So it's not like I'm so smart. It's just that he's smarter.
Yeah. Well, and they're leaking through there. So Tim Ross came out with his article. He updated it actually this morning, but Federal Reserve's widely expected to cut interest rates a quarter point at its meeting. The bigger question is how many more cuts officials expect to be warranted to preserve a solid job market without reversing. Now, do you think that Powell was kind of putting his head in his hands this morning when he woke up to Trump's win, thinking, okay, this is going to complicate it for the Fed?
Yeah, it's going to complicate it for the Fed, but I think that he's on the right course. And I hear a lot of the pundits now on CNBC and on Fox both saying that he should not cut. And there's too much underlying data that now there's no reason for them to bury some of these stories that are coming out. And I mean, if you look at the ISM that came out yesterday and you look at the credit managers' numbers, every one of them are pointing to recession.
Right.
And I think they've been covered up because of the media being so biased, and 90% of the media is biased toward the Democrat side. And I'm not getting political, even though I am political, but I'm not getting political here. It's just that we have to look at politics as it relates to business.
Yeah. So like Tim Clylis said, why would they cut it all? The reason that they need to cut, Tim, is that it's a consensus that the Fed funds rate is too high. we know that a lot of consumer spending is actually consumer debt, that we've seen credit cards go up to whatever, and that's why a lot of the reaction we're seeing, like in bonds this morning, mortgage-backed securities currently down 72 basis points. That of course is going to hit rate sheets hard this morning. We talked about this, and that the 10-year treasury is up to about 4, it's just below 4.5. This is the highest we've seen in quite a while, even higher than the other day at 4.39. But all of this is basically, what do they say in the markets where it's like buy the rumor, sell the truth, or something like that? Ron, if you know
buy
what
the
I'm
rumor,
talking
sell
about.
the news.
Yes, and the reality is that this is all reaction, but there's a lot of things that no matter how you feel about Trump and his last presidency, this is a very different. I see that, Ron. This is a very different time, right? So we have to recognize that, yes, the idea is, okay, Trump's coming in and there's all these things that could be inflationary and blah, blah, blah. But we also have to recognize that he's still coming into an economy that is the same economy we've had for months, and he's not going to turn it around in 20 minutes. So, we know that consumer spending is a problem because it's all consumer debt, and that, if people do start slowing down their spending, it's going to lead to recessionary talk and recessionary, feedback through the economy, which is why the Fed needs to lower their rates, because right now they've basically won the battle on inflation. And even if you believe that tariffs are going to drive prices up, or that, some other things are, it's not going to be inflationary like the pandemic was. The pandemic is what caused, and the financial reaction to the pandemic is what caused the inflation problem that we had, and the actual true supply chain issues and all the problems that we had there. That's what drove everything. And it was also pent up demand from people not spending. Then it was people having an abundance of money. Then it was people living on credit and still living that same lifestyle that they had when they had an abundance of money. I remember going to a cigar shop, and the guy was working there, and he said, "Man, I wish I was still on unemployment. I was making twice as much as I make working here." And that was, where people were coming from. So the what I'm trying to say here is that, yes, there's a lot of talk on what Trump's policies are going to do. But say, for example, let's talk taxes, right? Right now, I have pass-through income. I own a company, and that money passes to me, and it's my personal income, and I get taxed on it. Well, there were tax breaks put into place in Trump's last presidency that made it so I get to keep more of my pass-through money, and those will likely get extended. They were going to expire in 2025, but that money's already being spent. It's not a change in the way things are. It's just a continuation. Talk of not taxing tips. We'll have to see if that actually happens. I highly doubt it will. And you need the Congress to come on board on that. And a lot of times for some of these other things, they're not going to, even though they're red, they're just, they'll play the bad guy. They're not going to come through on that. What do you think? And then we'll jump over to Mike Thibault's comment about gas.
Well, something, I think one of the biggest things that we're going to see in the market right now is if it goes as it appears right now, that the House might stay red. Ironically enough, even though I like it that way, I think it might not be good for us. Gridlock is always good, especially in Washington, because every one of them like to spend. So now it'll just be more spending in different areas. But you got to get to a point where the spending is addressed. I mean, we've got way too much, and that's one of the things that Powell has to deal with. So he doesn't help us in mortgage rates, but when he cuts that Fed funds rate, that does have a definite effect on the 10-year Treasury and what the cost of borrowing is for the federal government.
Right. And it's also going to drive down, the costs of car loans. It's going to drive down what people are making in interest on savings accounts. I mean, I have savings accounts that were making 4.5% interest. So, all of that's going to go down as well when the Fed when the Fed continues to cut rates. We'll jump around a little bit. So let's talk about gas prices and Zelensky in there. Like Zelensky says, oil prices are way more dependent on world oil production numbers. You guys will all be wrong, unfortunately. Another chaotic administration with lack of plans for anything. He's been saying he'll have a health plan in 2 weeks since 2016. So, Dave, I mean, let's face it. So in this is one of the things that's different from Trump's first presidency. I remember doing these lives and doing my daily lock advice back in 2015, 16. And just like every day today, we talk about the Fed and what the Fed rate cuts will be. And we were talking about what the Fed rate hikes would be. And that's what was driving everything. Well, back then it was oil prices driving everything. Oil prices are going to come down a little bit, but they're not going to come down tremendously. But none of that really is the main driver for our world. It's one of the things he wants to do. I mean, you talk about healthcare. Him or anyone else is going to step in and fix healthcare. That's a problem with big business, big pharma, big hospital. I mean, again, I broke my leg, y'all. That cost me $10,000 in deductible and out-of-pocket expenses on that. My out-of-pocket limit for this year is $18,000, and we hit that. We hit our out-of-pocket limit there. Plus, I pay an extra $1,200 a month. I pay close to $30,000 a year is what I'll pay this year in medical premiums and out of pocket before everything even kicked in to cover stuff that they can argue that they're not going to cover anyway. So if you want to talk about broken health, I mean, no, he's not going to fix health, but health's already been broken. So, these are political things, but they're not going to change where rates are at. They're not going to change what people are spending money on a house. You will get people spending more money on houses because they feel more optimistic about the economy. They feel more optimistic about their income. Those things will offset some of the fact that mortgage rates are not going to come down as much. I mean, that's part of it. But what was Mike Thibault's comment on gas? Let's go back to that one.
I'll tell you what. Yeah. I'll tell you. I saw his comment, and I'll answer his question. It's basically, how does the president affect it?
Yeah, control gas prices. Yeah.
So the answer to that is real simple. The president affects gas prices all strictly because of regulation. And the reason gas prices jumped so much as soon as President Biden took office is he put on a lot of regulations where, there's leases available, but the regulations stopped the oil companies from having any desire to drill. They had so much regulation and so much extra cost. So one of the things that Trump claims, and if he does, if he does what he says and gets rid of all that regulation and we start drilling and we start fracking and we have more supply. And then remember, the market's always forward looking. So with the market being forward looking, at the price, it's going to bring prices down in the future. But what is Saudi Arabia going to do right now? They're going to say, okay, well, prices are coming down in the future. We're going to sell what we can today at higher prices,
right? Which
is going to help give us more of the immediate effect. So that's where the president on either party has the ability of affecting things is through regulation. And, I'm not sure that having that much authority from one person is good, because we saw exactly what can happen, just like what happened with the Senate when they decided to get rid of, go to reconciliation and things could be done without the filibuster and go to 50 votes on reconciliation. Well, the Democrats liked that idea until the Republicans said, okay, if it was good for that, we're going to do the same thing when it comes to Supreme Court justices.
Right.
So it gets to this tit for tat thing. And, even though, I like the idea of where we're at in some of those issues, it's not good long term. That gridlock is good, and forcing these people in Washington to come together and not just do things because who's in power today. That's not good for us long term.
Pushing it through. And as far as, and again, I want to keep this, this isn't a political show. Obviously today's all about politics, but it's politics, how it affects rates, the economy, the housing market. So like Dave, you said both things he said he's fixing. I am not a Trump fanatic. I like a lot of his policies, but the guy says he's going to fix everything. He's a narcissist. How do you argue with that, right? So who cares if he says he's going to fix all these things? It doesn't mean that he can or that he will. But the reality is right now what we're seeing is we're seeing bonds react initially to the idea that we have a red wave, right? So even though the House is not guaranteed yet, the expectation is that the Republicans will win the House and we will see a red wave. So you've got the 10-year Treasury now at 4, basically right below 4.5. We're heading into the Fed meeting. The Fed is still expected to cut. Markets are still pricing in a Fed cut tomorrow of 0.25 point. They're still pricing in a cut coming in December. Remember that, a week and a half ago, this was just under 70%. Then it was up over 80%. Now it's at about a 63%. So it's a little less likely in markets that we'll see that cut. Going into January, this one you can use to compare a little bit more. I mean, a month ago, it was expected that we would see a much larger, or at least number of cuts or larger cuts heading into January than what's expected right now. But that really hasn't changed over a day or a week. I mean, it was 44 a week ago, and it's 50 now that it would stay at 4.25. A week ago, it was 44% that it would be at 4%. That's dropped to 30%. So you're seeing a little bit of a fall off on expectations about where the Fed rate cuts will come and driving the economy. But overall, we haven't seen a huge reaction here. So as we go into the next big thing, which will be tomorrow, we're going to, expect to see a 1/4 point rate cut from the Fed. And then that Powell is going to get inundated at his press conference with Trump questions and what, about the tariffs and about the different things. So the question that we need to be paying attention to now is, what do we think markets are going to do with this information? And again, first of all, I know 75 basis points looks like a huge number. It's definitely ugly, but it's a 1/4 point in rate right now that you'll see a movement of. And that's what I said we would probably cap out at if we did get a red wave. Is it going to get worse from here? Do we continue to see it move lower from here? That's going to depend on what we get on Thursday and what those reactions are. What do you think, Ron, that Powell would say that would either send mortgage rates higher, or what would he say that would help mortgage rates to rebound a bit?
I think that if he says that I think if he continues and we get a bigger megaphone on the fact that he doesn't have as much faith in some of the reports that are coming out, I think that's going to help the markets. And what I mean by that is he said that he doesn't have faith in some of the numbers that are coming out from like BLS and what they're doing, according to the Beige Book, that they're actually going and using what they're finding out from their channel checks within the 12 districts.
Right.
And they're seeing that that hiring is not good and the employment numbers are not good. And I think if he continues on that, unfortunately, all of us are in a contrary business, right? So when the market is good, our business is bad, right? And when when our economy is bad, our business is good. So if he says that the economy is not really as strong as so many people think because of their channel checks, and they're seeing the fact that there's too much the GDP growth has a lot to do with inventory growth. It's not as much that we're buying as much. We're building up a lot of inventory that's not being sold through. So that has to be carried through. Now we're going to see a better number on the jobs report that comes through next time, just because we're going to see all those Boeing people are going to go back to work. Right. And we're going to have the people, and construction should, again, it's a contrary. Construction has to do better because there was so much devastation on the East Coast from the hurricanes.
It is, but me living in it and seeing it, it's hard to get anything done here now because everybody is busy and even busier than they were before. And they brought in help from outside. You can't just train up somebody to, all of a sudden be a heavy equipment operator or to start building houses. We're not rebuilding houses that were destroyed. So it's kind of funny because everyone takes that macro view, that high level view of, well, this is going to create jobs and these are going to things. And well, it doesn't, because we don't have more people to fill those things. We don't have people that can do these things. We don't have equipment that people can operate to do those things. So it doesn't create the jobs that everyone says it's going to. Boots on the ground when I see it in the micro level. But
it could be, but you're also importing people, right? So yeah, you might not have somebody that can operate the crane or run or build something. And I don't even know how to use a screwdriver, so I don't know what I'm talking about.
Right.
But you might have somebody coming from California that's not working.
And that's the thing. But When we look at the trades, none of that's ever come back from 2008. So you look at there isn't anywhere that there was an abundance of people that weren't working, that were doing any of those things: HVAC, electric, plumbing, any of the skilled trades. But just to circle back and make sure, because people are coming in and out there, is it a reactionary, Julie? Yes, absolutely, it's reactionary. We knew we were going to see reaction, but we're going to see more reaction tomorrow when we get the Fed meeting and the press conference. Will rates calm down in a day or so? No, not until next week, and they're probably not going to get that much better. I think, let me move it over to the full screen for a minute. I think we're going to be very much in the same range that we have been here. We're not necessarily going to improve much from here over the next week or so, unless Powell were to do something amazingly dovish tomorrow, which is unlikely. So, are we looking for, you said, are we headed for higher rates again? Higher than what we were yesterday, but not higher than, let's use, say, Mortgage News Daily as a reference point here. You're not going to go above the 7.5, but we're also, right today, we're probably at like 7.25. We'll say the last couple of days we were at 7. We'll set a 75 basis point jump like this is generally a quarter point on your rate sheet. So today you've seen rates jump a quarter point. Depending on where that Fed meeting goes tomorrow, could that go even further and take us to 7.5? Yes, we could see rates get worse this week and continue from here. Ron, what do you think the Fed meeting brings for rates, or what would you agree or disagree with what I just said?
Well, I agree with everything you've just said. The only thing I think that no one's really talking about, I haven't heard yet, is, I would never bet right now, especially right now, against Elon Musk. He's got too much, he's been too successful.
Right.
If he comes in and he's able to cut government, even half of what he says, he says he can cut $2 trillion off of the government expense. If he cuts $1 trillion off of GDP, and the government is spending $7 trillion right now, even though we're only taking in $5 trillion, that's still what, 10 or 15% that's going to be cut from GDP. That's a huge amount of GDP. So that's good. It's good for the country. It's good for the debt long term. Short term means it's going to help us in the mortgage business because it's going to be recessionary.
The one thing I would add to that a bit too. Sorry, I'm jumping around. I'm mentally have a few different things going on here. Never mind. I'll go off that one. So, real quick to Dave, you asked what are addressing rates where they'll be in 25 or 26. You might as well just, I don't know, throw a dart sideways at a balloon. I mean, come on. We have been wrong on where everything was going. I don't know how many times. And I say we, I mean everybody in all the prognosticating, whether we were coming off of, COVID and the pandemic, and we said, hey, things should slowly ramp up. And then all of a sudden rates jumped like crazy. And then we said, hey, things should start to ease their way down. Poor Barry gets roasted for the date May 10th because, he put himself out there and said, here's why things should get better. Obviously super sound reasoning from a guy that's been doing this for more than a couple of days. And that didn't come to fruition the way that we expected it to. I a month or 6 weeks ago said, hey, we're smooth sailing. We're finally getting to the rate cuts. We've had weak labor market. The economy data isn't really super strong. Inflation's coming down. We should see rates start to improve. I figured we'd be in the high fives by now, and look at where we're at. 7, we'll be between 7 and 7.5 for conventional. So you look at all of this and you say, well, where are we going to be in 25 or 26? That's the thing that isn't that no matter what everybody, of course, today, everything is all about, politics and Trump's agenda and tariffs and all this. But the reality is there are so many variables that are still at play going on here. Let's say that that was it. I was thinking the jobs in government. Let's say that Elon does go in there and cut government. Well, part of cutting government means government jobs. And yes, I know, I'm not a big fan of big government, but I do recognize these are people that have those government jobs. And those government jobs tend to be good jobs with good medical and good benefits and good, 401k and possible pension and all these things that go along with that. So in order to cut $1 trillion or $2 trillion from the government spending, that's going to include some jobs. That's going to increase unemployment. That's going to, drive that labor market weakness that we talk about, because we look at the last jobs report. It was 10,000 jobs created after a seasonal adjustment. And if we took government jobs out of that, we would have been negative. So government jobs, I mean, Ron, how much have government jobs been a part of the last couple of reports that were strong?
Oh, they've been, well, anywhere from 50 to 100% of it. I mean, that's where, like you said, there would have been negative jobs if it wasn't for the last set of government numbers.
Yeah.
And
so,
Cameron, one other thing to address the rate issue, there's going to be another hidden benefit here. So we've gone through roughly 3 years of higher rates.
mm-hmm.
And those people that are old like you and me more than you, I guess, we're used to 7% rates. That's what I bought my first house, it was 18%.
We did, but I would argue that housing prices and affordability are very different. You can't use the rate argument, because I bought my first condo for 90 grand and that condo today sells for 280,000.
Right,
and incomes didn't triple.
Right. But what my point is that I think people are starting to realize we're not going to go down, and we shouldn't go down to those 3% rates. And they've been sitting and waiting and saying, I'm going to wait. Well, they're still getting married. They're still having babies. They're still getting divorced. There's still people that are passing on, and all of those properties, people are going to have to buy for that. And I just saw yesterday, I think the number was like $38,000 per person in unsecured debt. So a household has almost $80,000 in unsecured debt,
right,
yet has $300,000 in equity. So
and I'm going to jump in on that same piece with you, and then I'll give it back to you to finish that thought. Also, remember, when you're talking about that debt, cash flow is king, and people don't have cash flow. And I did a video on this I threw it on TikTok and Facebook a few weeks ago. I'm a guy that does not carry a large debt load, and I have great credit now. I went broke, but I've recovered. So I have great credit now, and I'm getting notifications from my credit cards. The other day, our business account with PayPal had a card through a bank called Concerto, and they decided they're no longer going to have that card anymore. Boom, done. And we got an email on Monday that they were dropping our account limit from $25,000 to $1,700, and that the account was going to be closed a week later, and that there was no longer any new charges allowed on the card. Then another example, I got a personal card that I don't use that often, had a $20-something thousand limit. All of a sudden that got dropped to $5,000. So other people said they're seeing the same behavior. And banks are they're getting very aware of their exposure to consumer debt, and they're tightening the reins. HELOCs are going to tighten up again. You're going to see frozen lines. So these people are going to be forced to take advantage of, and I'll throw it back to you, Ron, now, of that 300,000 in equity you were talking about.
So that is for all of us an opportunity. Everything you just said there, Hammer, is a perfect opportunity that we need to be looking at and reaching out to people and saying, hey, you know something, if you're part of that group that has $80,000 in debt, a household debt, and you relay exactly what you just said, Hammer, that, hey, in times like this, the banks cut lines, they cut
credit
HELOCs,
cards, credit limits,
the
HELOCs,
limits. Hey, go and use your debt right now and bring down those interest rates that are averaging 22.84%. Even if you bring it down to an 8.25% HELOC, which I know those are out there right now, you're going to be far better off, again, going from the cash flow standpoint. And if you've got that, they could not have cut your credit limit or canceled credit card from 25,000 if you owed 20 on it. Right. They're going to want to keep collecting that money. So if you've got that money, if you've dealt with that a lot of people think that having home equity is an asset. It's high risk. because none of us
Yeah,
lend
yeah,
money. We
yeah.
don't lend money to people who need it.
Well, let's. I'm going to steer because we're way over on time. I want to wrap it up, but yeah, because now we're talking about leveraging and credit management and debt management. And I agree with you and I would agree very much on everything you're about to say. But a couple of things. Number one, like Julie said, they're waiting for 5%. You're right; they are waiting for 5%. But what'll happen is as rates go up, they become conditioned to higher rates. And then anytime we get a blip back down, like remember when rates went down into the low sixes on conventional conforming, the number of refis skyrocketed. So again, this isn't a webinar about building business, but stay in touch with your past clients, be in front of them right now, set everything up. When rates do come down, you'll see those opportunities. Purchases are going to be tight, but as far as how is all this affecting rates? Yes, we're going to see more volatility this week. We talked about that. We are definitely going to see it. If Kamala, if Harris had pulled it out, then we would be seeing a different reaction. Not necessarily that it would be that different, but it would be different. I don't think we would have seen bonds tank as much as they have. Markets were already pricing in what they called the Trump trade anyway. And we're seeing more of that right now. We're going to see that. We head into tomorrow's Fed meeting. We're going to see the Fed cut by a quarter point, but it's going to be all about the press conference. It's going to be what does Powell say? What kind of questions? He's going to be inundated with questions now about Trump and tariffs and the economy and inflation and all that stuff. And we're going to see, kind of how markets react. And really right now, we are at the whim of the emotions of traders, because traders are, especially stocks get even more emotional than bonds, but there's a lot of emotion to all of this. And we just have to kind of sit back on the sideline and watch how this plays out. It will return. Rates are going to, they're not going to stay continuing to rise, but they're not going to go as low as we were hoping they would have, at least not in the near term. We need something for that. Ron says global over. Go ahead, Ron, say it. What you were typing and say it.
So right now, we're looking at, and the reports this morning are that China is slowing down, and you have to always double whenever China says something negative, double it, right? Because they lie every time. It's government controlled.
Yeah.
Right. So they're putting all kinds of stimulus into their economy, and they've got a massive economy, 1.4 billion people, and there's even all the stimulus they're putting in, they're still slowing down. That's going to talk about a global recession right there, and it's a global marketplace. So right. it's going to come to us, and that's going to help. Unfortunately, again, recession is good for our business.
Right.
Rates come down in recession.
Yeah, so we'll see more of that. But anyway, y'all, hope you guys found value. Some nuggets on here to converse. Ron, thanks for joining me today. That was a lot of fun to have you on here.
Thanks for having me, buddy.
And everybody, will again tomorrow we're going to talk more about what's going to come with the Fed meeting, and that'll be the focus of tomorrow's conversation and kind of what direction it is. I do think, by the way, we're down 64 basis points at the moment. I bet you that by the end of the day today, we've probably end up back in the 40s. I think we will see some recovery to bonds. Just because they're also a good opportunity when they sell off this much, it's going to trigger. There's going to be people that are buying, so we'll see that. What do you think? You think that bonds will rebound at all today?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't know that your rate sheets
exactly.
will.
I don't think they're going to go all the way back, but I think
yeah.
I think about a third retracement would be a good number right there.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you just said.
Yeah, and just how that affects your rate sheets, I wouldn't necessarily look for anything but maybe some of the more trigger-happy wholesale lenders to reprice better, even if we do see a recovery in bonds today, because we've got a lot of volatility going on. Secondary desks, you've got your pipeline to manage. They've got all of your pipelines to manage, and there is a lot of risk going on right now in that secondary desk. You're going to see that hit the rate sheets. You're going to see rates react. Rate sheets are going to be worse than they maybe need to be, because the way that the secondary department works, the way that lock desks have to hedge, they're going to have to worry about trying to keep some consistency to their pricing, as well as they're going to have to, create some profit to cover some losses. So you're not going to like your margins the next couple of days is my point. But, and yes, Julie, that is Ron Siegel. So the legendary radio personality.
Wait till, Hammer, my recommendation, and again, it's just one person, one opinion, and it's everyone's got one. Don't do anything till Monday. Let things kind of settle down between the election and the Fed and all this other stuff. I wouldn't be doing anything unless you have to. But
Well,
you know,
and
let
if you
things
had
settle over the
to, then
weekend.
you should have done. That was what I was saying in the lock advice the last few days. Like, if you were floating at this point, it was, we've locked all last week. So if you were floating at this point, it was because then you were hoping to see what everything was going to play out, and customers didn't want to make a move. So now you want to give it time and wait till Monday. I agree. Wait till next week and let's see where the dust settles. So I don't think it'll get too much worse from here. But then again, I've said those words before, and I've eaten them more than once.